Anyway, so they put Smackdown in the empty performance center is what they did on Friday the 13th. And boy, was this unlucky for all of us that had to watch it. I am not going to blister individual people on this because this was doomed. And I've teased it a little bit earlier, but I'll say it again. They did a show where it was, instead of All Elite Wrestling, the Dynamite show, where they say, okay, we got to do a show, so we're going to figure out a way to do a wrestling show. The SmackDown was almost completely the opposite. They had All Elite had fun doing a wrestling show, and SmackDown was a show that almost made fun of wrestling. Did you feel the same way? It was just like they were just jacking off out there, including the girls' training match. But the whole thing, nobody was being serious except for, as we'll talk about in a second, Daniel Bryan and Cesaro. But everybody else, it was just, eh.
Yeah, I felt the same way, yeah.
We said last week on the show, or was it on the Drive-Thru? I can't keep track anymore. We're, doing so much. But you can't have wrestling in front of no people at all, in front of a completely empty, and they glorified the fact that it was an empty building. They lit up every empty seat, and they shot normally so you could see all the empty seats. And there was Triple H and fucking Michael Cole doing the announcing, but Triple H was, I don't know, he was zinging the baby faces. He was just trying to be funny and entertaining. At one point, did he not color Michael Cole's beard with a Sharpie?
His soul patch.
Whatever the fuck.
And can I jump in here real quick?
I wish you would.
It was a show like this that perfectly exemplified why I hate Michael Cole. He is awful. And I understand that there are so many awful commentators now that you look at someone like him and you go, oh, he's all right. He is awful. He is so insincere in everything he does. And if you want to really lose your mind, just focus on his hands. His hands are constantly in motion. And now other commentators in WWE, because they're trained by him, do the same thing. Constantly, his hands are moving so that they're showing you what he wants you to point. He's just nonstop. I hate Michael Cole. I just fucking hate Michael Cole. He sucks. He sucks so fucking bad that I was able to put up.
How do you really feel about Michael Cole?
He sucks so bad that I was enjoying the jokester Triple H next to him. But he's so awful. He's just insufferable and insincere. And everything that's wrong with WWE commentating, everyone points to Vince. It's Michael Cole too, because they've all taken on little elements of the Michael Cole way of doing things. He is just so worthless as a commentator. I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. Go get a drink with.
Well, I was about to say, I was going to take up for him a little bit because I've always liked Michael Cole. He's one of the few people there I'd never had a problem with as a person. He was just starting when I left. Remember, we did the SmackDown pilot, me and him together, that aired in April of that year before it became a series. Thankfully, I was already in Louisville by the time it became a series. But in his defense, that's part of the problem. He was never a wrestling fan. He was found by Kevin Dunn because he had done news, and they wanted real television people. But Michael did try to learn as best he could, but his sum total of wrestling experience has been in the WWF, WWE world, universe. And so he's never actually done wrestling. And so, of course, he's been told a lot of bad habits. But I've enjoyed him calling stuff when I've heard him have the chance to call stuff, like, an NXT match or whatever. A couple of times he's branched out away from really the spotlight, and he does better in that environment, but he's told to do things that way, and it's always the WWE universe and all. They're not as obnoxious of phrases to him because he was taught that from the start and has no other frame of reference of other wrestling to judge it by, if that makes any sense.
I hate him. I hate him. He's so bad and he's so insincere. And again, like I said,
have I ever told you about the time he saved the puppy from the burning building?
No, and I don't want to know about it. Was it a Vince thing?
You hate him.
Was it a Vince thing to move your hands nonstop?
Oh, I move my hands a lot too. And
not like that with him. Watch his hands. The next empty arena, boring broadcast they do, it'll drive you crazy. It's
all right. Well, let's not just do 40 minutes on poor Michael Cole, or we'll never get through this fucking thing.
It drove me crazy, as you can tell by listening to this show.
God damn, calm down. Fuck, drink a bowl of Valium soup. The first match was Sasha Banks and Bayley against Alexa Bliss and Nicky Cross. And these poor girls have not only never been in that situation before, obviously, but I think most of them, I don't know where Nicky Cross came from. I bet you most of them have never actually worked an independent show in front of 12 people. So they were just way off their comfort level. But they had a training match, including apparently, because it was on the satellite, stopping during the break. You don't even stop training matches. But they were working like there was people there. And they were just doing what they normally do. And it just looked And it sounded so empty and so hollow. And, with training matches, I don't know if everybody does it, but every time in OVW or Ring of Honor, any seminar I've been involved in or training school, whatever, when you have training matches or tryout matches, the rest of the entourage there, all the students, everybody, that's your audience. And we make them, or we tell them to, we don't have to make them, but we tell them to make noise and support their, fellow competitors. And that's, so a training match has more feedback than something like this does. But it was just so blah. And the empty entrances look ridiculous. They brought Roman Reigns out, and he's a well-spoken guy. But that sit down with Michael Cole, it had no energy, and it was all about performing and not fighting or wrestling. He would say performing, and we perform, and there was no pretense of it. Just like, we accidentally, saw the fucking audition tapes or casting tapes. A bunch of these people are auditioning to be wrestlers, and we happen to see it. I couldn't believe that Jeff Hardy's return to television came in a backstage promo interrupted by Baron Clown Corbin in his fucking, is he the king of the goddamn Cro-Magnon cavemen? Because why is a king wearing a fucking buffalo pelt on his shoulders? I don't know what this fucking outfit is. What is the reason for this? Baron Corbin. King Baron Corbin.
I'm not sure. Did he win the King of the Ring?
Well, I've never seen a king that. Did you see what he was wearing? He's wearing a crown, and then he's wearing some kind of animal fur. What is he the king of? The jungle?
The Game of Thrones.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
We just went through 3 segments in 2 minutes.
Well, it ain't going to take long, but I'm going to talk longer about AEW, and a bunch of people might actually like it because they were on the fucking ball.
If I could jump in, just, you talked earlier about the words that Vince McMahon likes and how Michael Cole has obviously adopted them like you have to if you're a commentator there. I think the word that drives me the most crazy throughout wrestling, AEW too, is perform. We're here to perform for you. And I'm just like, why would you say that?
No!
It defeats the whole purpose. Why would you say that?
As Rip Rogers says, as seen on TV or as heard on TV. When guys want to get jobs in this business, they do the same shit and they say the same shit they hear on TV because they think that's what it's supposed to be, and it feeds on itself. But it just, And then they showed the Elimination Chamber match from the pay-per-view, which, here's the deal with that. I like Miz and Morrison. I like Morrison, so I tolerate Miz. But this was a bunch of middle card teams or teams presented as mid-carders. I'm not saying they don't have any talent, but right now this was a bunch of middle card teams, and the whole setup looked so sci-fi, and it was long, and I tuned out, zoned out, and Miz and Morrison won. But at least there was people there, but at the same time, we've chewed that food already. That's the Miz and Morrison sit down. I said, I'm not going to pick everybody apart. Miz is very stagey anyway.
Yeah.
But they did a comedy routine about their movies. Miz is playing a part of playing a wrestler, and this in this setting or this whatever the fuck brought Morrison down with him. It was like there was no oomph to it like the guys on Dynamite did and had in their promos or everything else. This was just like, oh, we're just doing this. They did a big fucking hype deal about Ron Gronkowski. I've never seen Mr. Say again?
Rob Gronkowski.
Ron, out of which is Ron his brother? Do I know a Ron Gronkowski?
I don't know.
I haven't watched football since the fucking 70s, and I don't give a fuck. And only then I only watched it because there was 3 channels. Then a guy named Mojo Rawley was at the desk in a pink suit, couldn't figure out how to work his fucking headset, and was promoting that Ron or Rob, either one, maybe both of them, will be here next week. And I wrote, this was horrible and this guy's rotten. And then Daniel Bryan and Cesaro, as you would expect, were the only ones that really took this seriously. They had a good, hard match where they didn't try to play to people that weren't in the imaginary and not in the building. Everything looked good. They didn't go fucking crazy on doing stupid shit that would look stupid if you did it in an empty building, but they had a nice competitive wrestling match. And Sami Zayn on color, this is a guy who spent most of his early career as a mute. And one time in Ring of Honor, when I said, we're about to go on television on 70 television stations across the country. Is there a way you could do promos if you learned to speak Spanish? I had to beg him. A top baby face. A guy was supposed to be used as a top baby face. I had to beg him to try to figure out a way to speak so we could go on television. It was like I was asking him to fucking sodomize his mother with a rusty fishing knife. And he's a goddamn highlight on the microphone. Of course, they went to a break in this match, but I wrote in my notes, suddenly a wrestling match broke out on this show. They went to a break, but they came back, and they wrestled hard and serious, and Daniel Bryan won with a small package. So the heels could get heat on his friend Drew Gulak, and Daniel Bryan could save him. And I wrote down here, if they had more guys that could do this, it might work. But I think only because of Daniel and Cesaro's backgrounds were they able to pull this off. The other guys who are used to performing just don't get it. Corbin and Jeff Hardy. Did you hear what weight they announced Jeff Hardy at?
I missed that.
225 pounds. I guarantee you Jeff hadn't cracked 200 with rocks in his pockets in a while, but they announced him at 225 pounds. But the jacked up guys that don't wrestle in a shirt on Dynamite that they could announce at 205 or 210, they're announcing at 186. It makes no fucking sense. So please, AEW, take note of this. Try to have some grown adults on the roster. It'll help subliminally. Jeff worked hard. Corbin worked hard. It's just he's a ridiculous gimmick and he looks atrocious. And that Elias, who I still have not seen wrestle, was on color and is boring as fuck. And the distraction to give Baron Corbin an out so that Jeff Hardy could win was he stood up on the fucking table and played his guitar. Like, A, Jeff Hardy needs somebody distracted on his TV re-debut to fucking beat somebody. B, like that's a legitimate distraction anyway if you were actually trying to have a contest that you were winning. And C, did I mention Baron Corbin was in the ring? What the fuck? Look at the state of him. Just everything he wears, the look, the gimmick, whatever the fuck. Somebody needs to take some sandpaper to this guy and just sand everything off of him and start from complete scratch. Awkward. And Jeff hit a nice stiff swanton, and boom, and there you go. By this point, I was just like, please let this be over. I felt bad for him. Did I miss anything? Was there any bright spot up until now?
No, and you kind of hit on. Well, Cesaro and Bryan was good because they actually acted like they were focusing on the other guy that they wanted to beat as opposed to the fans that weren't there. But I can't blame a lot of those people because they've been trained in one way of working, which is the WWE Vince McMahon style of performing in front of an audience. But you kind of just hit on my thought, and I've had this with Raw, which is 3 hours, and I've had it now with SmackDown a couple of times. When will this end? Is it almost over? I want it to end. I've had that reaction to every single WWE show I've watched over the last 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah. And it almost was. One more thing, and we'll get off of SmackDown. Never to come back. Here came John Cena. And he did the, whole entrance and everything. And besides the fact, I like John. John was great to us here. John's drawn a ton of money. John's the Iron Man. I think he's getting a little old to dress like that in all those neon fluorescent colors. But he's a star, and he can talk, and he has personality. And he has a gravitas about his nature enough that he could kind of carry this off where if he's sitting in an empty building being interviewed on national television, when he's talking, at least you're halfway listening, right? This is somebody important. And then Bray Wyatt comes out and instantly, and he's on, and he doesn't just walk out and then suddenly come on. When he gets in the ring, he's on to begin with. And this guy has fucking oomph, and he can talk, and he's got personality, and he's got emotion, and he's got the Blackjack Mulligan promo genes. He's created, like Blackjack Mulligan, created the cast of characters down in Eagle Pass, Texas. He's created this fucking funhouse and the voices in his head. And yes, the voices in my head was stupid too when you think about it. But a guy like this with that fucking goofy laugh and that fucking grin and just the way he looks and the way he talks, it's one of those things where a guy like that, you can carry some of this shit off that would look really stupid if anybody else was doing it. We've talked about that so much on the program here over the past several months doing these reviews. Sometimes if a guy's a big enough star, you get away with doing some goofy shit, but anybody else, it would be death. This guy can get away with doing this. It was a good talking segment. It wasn't as good if there'd been probably people there, but I can think of in studio wrestling, years ago, Bray Wyatt could have said this shit and it would have got over in front of a few people, or a pre-tape or a, locker room segment or whatever. So as far as verbally, Bray was a welcome kicker at the end, but this was a long time to spend 2 fucking hours. You've been telling me how great Bray Wyatt was all this time, and I just thought it was just you because you're all usually wrong about everything.
I don't know how great he is in the ring. I haven't been a big fan of a lot of his matches, and
I was talking about the promos, but regardless,
his promos they stand out for a reason. He actually seems, as silly as his stuff can be at times, or as ridiculous, it seems like he believes it. And that's really the big key there. And I told you that quote from Sasha Banks from that FCW documentary. We don't know what he was saying, but he pulled us in.
Well, that's with every great. I mean, they talk about guys who were great promos. Handsome Jimmy in Memphis. You could write down word for word what he said, and there was not only no punctuation, but it didn't make a lick of sense. But when he said it, Monday night, there'd be 11,000 people there because it sounded so good. Somehow it sounded like something he'd say, or Terry Funk or Piper or anybody. A lot of times it wasn't what they said. It was how they said it and whether the people believed they meant it or not, or just that they meant themselves or not. And this guy means himself. So, but that was a big company doing an empty arena, and they made a big deal out of the arena being empty. I think the arena they thought would be more of an attraction. It's like one of those that they'll say in meetings, well, it'll be an attraction because it'll be the first time that this has ever happened before. And even if this is, fucking shitty, they go crazy because it's the first time. Well, it's the first time they've ever done this, and hopefully it'll be the last because it fucking sucked. But it's not.
To be fair, all their shows suck. other than NXT, which has its moments. Raw's awful. SmackDown's awful. There's a pattern here.
This was awfuler. Even awfuler. But it doesn't have to be that way, baby. It doesn't have to be that way. Say, get yourself up, baby. Get yourself up, honey. Go to the doctor. Go to the doctor. Go to the hospital. I said I would not give him the damn satisfaction